Hi, my name is Charlie and I am Disabled Daydreamer here online, and today I thought I would talk a little bit more about my experience within the TTI, which is the troubled teen industry. And for today's Diary of a Troubled Teen, I thought I would simply talk about times in each facility that I found the most scary and kind of talk about what that meant and what that meant as like a lasting impression on myself. And so this is going to be a little bit of a trigger warning for continuing. I'm going to be talking about some tough subjects relating to, again, child incarceration. We'll just do them in order. And so technically the first placement that I had was two different placements. They placed me in another town and then they quickly moved me to the one that was like closer to my town. And so the original facility I went to was already away from home, which was like a little bit uncomfortable already. And this facility was fine. There was probably me and like one other kid and the staff. And so that just made it kind of weird, but you know, it was fine. I don't know. I don't really have necessarily an incredibly bad experience to talk about like my first couple of weeks specifically at this facility. But once I moved over to the one that was closer within the town that I lived in, things did get weird. We had a lot of kids that would like violently like run away and they like throw things, and they just basically be like, you're on lockdown. And what that meant is go to your room and like sit on your bed and don't move. And that basically means that they're trying to make sure all the kids are there, figure out what to do with the kids that just ran away, which happened more than I think you can imagine at this first facility. In other facilities, no, but in this first facility, gosh, I can't even, I'm like going through, I'm like, this kid ran away, this kid ran away. And every single time it was kind of scary. And then you would hear like whisperings of stuff like, I heard that they're doing this, and I heard this is going on and they're in danger. And like they talk about things and you're like, oh my gosh, it was like, and it was terrifying. And it would, a lot of the times it would happen during dinner. So I want you to imagine, again, you had a long day, you're living in this setting with a bunch of other troubled teens, and it's dinner time. You just went through school, you just did like all this other stuff for the program, and you're sitting down and it's dinner time. I don't know, for some reason we had chili rellenos a lot at this place because one of the ladies made it. So we had like, let's just say, I'm like, we're sitting down, we're like, okay, we're having chili rellenos. And we're all just like sitting down and we're like pouring our juice, and I'm gonna give this like a random name, and then all of a sudden we're like, oh, who just opened the door? Corey just ran out the door. And it's like, okay, everybody go to your rooms. And we would be there and our food would be cold and our food would just be like sitting there. And sometimes they would make new food, but typically no, it was just like, all right, come back out, guys, after they did like all the paperwork and made sure that none of us also were going to run away. So that was always really rough. And there was also like people, again, I've kind of like gone into this, that I think that a lot of people within these facilities were neurodiverse. And so I think a lot of times you would experience people's meltdowns, and so they would also kind of do the same thing. They would just kind of like tell us to go to our rooms, same protocol, and sometimes you'd hear people like just screaming, yelling. And again, it's probably just a response to stimuli, but that was all incredibly scary. I could go into stuff that's like a little bit more personal, and a little bit more, how you say, hard to talk about. I'm like, how do I say this? But I'm gonna kind of keep this one a little bit light. But I also had like some scary issues with like the director. The director definitely of this specific program did not like me. And that was very abundantly clear. And that's kind of like a scary place to be as like a 13, 14-year-old kid, knowing that like you've moved from like a place where you're in danger to now you're in a place where the person that theoretically could help you and protect you just doesn't like you. And so it's an uphill battle to get even heard or even like the most basic of care and reciprocation from said person. And so that was always really, really difficult to deal with at this first place. Or I guess first and second place. It's honestly very hard. And then I was moved to another facility, and this facility was better, but it was definitely was high stress because there was two houses. One was more for like local kids and we would like interact with them, and one was more for kids that were a lot of them were local, but it was long-term placement. So it was not just kids that were there for a little while. It was kids from the area and kids that have been brought in from the surrounding area. And honestly, I felt the most like kinship to the people in this specific facility. But I think that there's a lot to be said about places being too strict and places being too lenient. And I think this place definitely went both directions depending on who was working. And so at times, honestly, the things that were taking place in this facility, I don't even think the staff even fully knows or comprehends what was going on. And it's like, imagine you're just being placed into a place like this and you have none of this background, and then now you're getting this wild exposure to things that you thought you'd never be exposed to. And there's a lot of things that aren't even like YouTube appropriate to talk about. But I'm talking like making jerky like items for a psychoactive effect inside of the piano. And these are things that I didn't know as a child, but quickly learned about in a facility like this. And there is a lot of things going on, and a lot of the kids here needed more help than we were getting. And when I was sent there, the kind of sell and the give to my parents is this is like this facility, but it has more therapy, when kind of the opposite was true. And it was also really scary to feel kind of unsafe with your therapist. So we saw therapists outside of the clinic, or outside of like where we were, like where we stayed, slept, whatever. I don't know what you would call it. But would go to external therapy. And me and this therapist like did not mesh. They would kind of flip a lot of things, and I would try to talk about things, and there's things like I even really couldn't get out, but I'd try to talk about things that were bothering me, and it was always flipped in a way that was like, okay, well, your accountability what? Your accountability where? And I'm like talking about like deep traumas and trying to like test the waters to be like, hey, these are things that are bothering me, and they're like, more, that's like not like, they're very abrasive and rude. And when I'd go to like the director, I would be like, hey, like I don't think this is working out. I'm leaving like every therapy session in tears, and I feel like I'm just fighting with her the entire time, and I don't think I'm getting anywhere. And I was told essentially that if I'm not crying after therapy, then I'm not receiving proper therapy. And so it was actually a good thing that I was feeling those emotions. When really I think that it just wasn't a good fit, and I don't think she really truly understood what was going on with me, and there was no safety in place, and things came from like an accusatory place, I think because of the link to the facility itself. So they would also do things like show up for placement calls, things like that. So they were like very involved too. And so it was also very uncomfortable to have somebody that you don't trust and you don't feel comfortable talking to also be in charge of like your discharge plans, or like where you will go next, etc, etc, etc. So that place, and like I said, there's like a lot of just activity happening because again, some people are very, very, very strict, and you would quickly learn which staff members were, and which staff members, and especially staff members that would maybe work alone or would work in pairs, that really, really didn't care. And so this meant that it was like a free-for-all for troubled teenagers. And so like, I don't know, whatever you can think of, you know, don't deviate from it. That was happening. I don't even know what to say. There's so many labyrinths to go down for this specific summer that I was at a facility. And yeah, I don't know what to say. And at the time, it didn't feel so scary, but looking back at it as like an adult, I am like, oh my goodness, like we were supposed to be getting therapy, and we're sent here on the guise of this being a more therapeutic location to basically be exposed to like a teenage party house some days of the week when certain staff members were working. Like it was, and at the time you would think like those staff were the cool ones. But now I've just kind of learned that like the staff that would like bend like in certain ways, right? Like I'll get into like this lady with the Oreos. pin lady with the Oreos. Like, some people were like obviously trying to be too nice or like your friend in a way that was like bad and was not good for us. Like, we had one lady at one facility who would give out smokes to the kids, and I think it was like, I don't know, like as a kid it looked cool, like she was like one of us and she got us. But now as an adult I realize that those people are looking for like validation within the kids. Like, they went to work for friendship, which is strange and peculiar, and it was just people from the community that really had no business doing these type of jobs. So moving on to the other facility, the scariest thing that I can reference, there's a few things. There was a couple of staff members that were like hotheads, and I don't even know if I want to show this letter, but one of the staff members made me cry. And I ended up working with her through like a kitchen service basically. And like, she warms up to me a little bit, but she was a lot to deal with, and she was mean. And in she wrote in my goodbye book, "I'm sorry I made you cry." And I don't know who told her that, but I'm assuming it's like my coworker told her that, because I think I told her, I was like, yeah, like, she yelled at me because I didn't have like a dish rag or something. And so there was like times where like staff would kind of become belligerent, but most of the staff were okay-ish. But one time, and at this specific facility, we had multiple buildings and also like multiple points in each building that would rotate from like day to night, so that all of the kids were all in one spot and they were like easy to watch for sleep. So like, we didn't have doors and things like that. But also on the night side, on both sides, but they were typically kept on the night side because we were all on the day side for most of the day, and then they would just sleep in the night side. And so, how do I put this other than to say they called them quiet rooms? And like, they were padded rooms with locks on the outside, and these were used in a variety of different ways. And so we had some, like I said, on the day side. I very rarely saw people locked inside of them. The only times I saw were like people were on like active watch or something, and like they had to have them in like one specific room and had like a one-on-one kind of thing. And so I think that's the only time I ever saw it. But it was a room that was painted all blue, and when we would ask like, why is it this shade of blue, they'd say like, it's like science and it's supposed to like calm us down. But it was like the most off-putting, disgusting, chewed gum, like gum colored blue. And like I said, everything was padded, and then there would be a like very small window that I'm assuming was like some type of like plexiglass or bulletproof glass or something. Like, it was very thick and it was built within the padding itself. So there was like a small, and like, it wasn't just regular glass, like you couldn't just break it. But I'm just trying to set the stage. And so we had a couple on one side, and then we had some on the night side. And when there was like really severe cases of like, they had to hold people separate from other children, which we all were held in isolation to some extent, but this was like true isolation. So and again, not to talk too much of, again, I won't use names. I don't even know if I remember her name, but somebody at some point ran from the facility and was found and brought back to the facility. And so they were placed in the night sides, padded room, safety rooms, relaxation rooms, whatever they tried to like bill it as. They'd always be like, you can ask to go in them, in the quiet rooms, you can ask. And some kids would, I think, just because like you were so just stressed out. But you just, yeah, you'd go in there and sit in there, and you couldn't bring anything in, no shoes, no nothing, and you would just sit in an all chewed gum blue padded room. And for some reason, at times that was preferable to what was existing outside. But anyway, unless you were one of the kids that were locked. And so girl comes back, and they put them in one of these rooms, and they have like a 24-hour watch and staff and security, things like that. And so this is our sleeping side. So we're all brought over there, and I don't know if they were doing this for attention because we all were back there, or, you know, I mean, there's a lot of things kids do, a lot of things. Kids are just kids, right? And so she was just hitting the, like I said, there's a door, and they were just hitting the door and hitting the glass, and it was so loud, and we're all like looking at the staff like, hello? Like, we're all very scared that she's going to like burst out and like, I don't know how she's feeling. Like, is she going to get mad at us? I don't know, like, what is going on here? Like, all of us were visually and like verbally expressing that we were uncomfortable and that she was going to break out, and the staff kept being like, oh, she can't, it's fine, and they had I think they tested the patience of the security guard that was with them, so the security guard just kind of just letting it happen, hoping that they'll just stop, I guess. It did not, and as like we all have like showers and stuff on that as the night progressed, so did the slamming on the door. And again, we're all like, we're very afraid right now that this door is going to open. And the door didn't open, and I don't know if it was just like one really strong hit, or if it was just like because this was hours of hitting the same door, but she knocked like the whole window pane out, and it didn't break, but it like popped out. And that was horrifying, honestly, because we're like, okay, like we've been telling you guys like the entire night that we're scared, and they made us all like go in another room while they like moved them to, heavens knows, I hope if this girl's watching this and like recognizes her story, I hope you're doing fantastic. And yeah, I moved it, and then we all like moved back to bed, and again they're like, all right guys, good night, and we're like, good night, like what, like are we the only ones that are bothered about what has occurred over this night? And so I think things like that was really scary, and it was a very isolated area, which scared me. Sometimes we were isolated with staff, which didn't make me feel very comfortable. And again, like I said, pinning the Oreos. Not every staff member who would like bend the rules were doing it in a way that I think was malicious or awful. We had one staff member, and when you hit like a certain level, you're allowed to leave campus with a staff member. And so typically this was with like a specific program, but every so often, and I think it was because it was around Christmas, so there was like 5 kids total in the rooms for our entire group, and so they had to run out and grab things for like the holidays to make sure we had them within the group or within the home or whatever. And so we got to go out with them, and they bought us Oreos. And I remember they took us in the van, and we're like eating them, and we're like super casually eating them, and they turn around so serious. They're like, you have to eat all of them. And we're like, okay, you have to eat all of them. There has to be no evidence. And so me and this girl are just in the back of this van, just eating Oreos, like, just all I can remember, just like trying to eat another Oreo, but it was also like, when am I ever gonna get another Oreo? I had no idea, so I just kept going, and I just remember they're like, they have to all be gone, and they were, and they're like, do not tell a soul. Yeah, and so like that was like nice and kind and whatever. Like I said, it was like over the holidays, and so very few kids were left over the holidays. A lot of kids would go with their parents, and I just wasn't so fortunate, I guess. And that was always like a disconcerting time, I guess, to the holidays. I struggled the most with the holidays. For me, Christmas is something that matters a lot, and I'm not like Christian or anything like that. I like just the winter holidays, and I like the lights, and I like the celebrations, and I like the festivities, and I like the movies. Everything about it like makes me happy. And it's like, when you go to these places, like even little joys and happiness like that is just kind of taken from you. And so any kind of small amount of personality and things that you care about starts kind of dissolving. And so coming back, like I am definitely like a very big holiday person. I remember us living in the there's like a 60 minutes about this apartment complex, okay, in our small town. And so know that the place that I was living in when I was like 17, you know, like I said, I don't know where else it was gonna rent to me, only sketchy locations for sure. But I was 17 and I would still, like, we were so broke, and I would still decorate for every like Halloween and every Christmas. And then, like I said, we lived in like the worst apartments in town, like the grossest of they're bad. They're very bad. Maybe I can talk about the story about these apartments more, because I have so much to say about leaving home at 17, and I think there's so many stories that go with that. But yeah, every holiday I would make sure that I would decorate, and I would decorate outside. And there were a couple of kids in the complex, and I felt bad after I did this, because I like decorated a little pumpkin and I put it on my porch for Halloween, and somebody stole it. And I was like, oh, and I was like, okay, well, like there's like 1 or 2 apartments have kids. And so like I posted on my screen door, whoever took my pumpkin, just know I know who took it. I had no idea. And then approximately like a week later, another pumpkin arrives at my porch that was not the original pumpkin, with a note that says, sorry, I took your pumpkin. And that's, and then like after that, like kind of changed my perspective, because I was like, wait, like, I don't know, like obviously I knew it was probably a kid. I don't know. I was just feeling goofy. I was like, I know who stole my pumpkin. I was trying to be like silly, but then I kind of realized that like it was more than that, and like this kid probably stole another pumpkin to put on my porch. And I don't know. I didn't know who stole my pumpkin, but there's so many stories to be told about that. And that's on getting close to aging out of the system, and then not aging out of the system, and then getting all of the benefits and things that happen with that. No school benefits, things like that, just going to an apartment that there's a 60 minutes on. And there, like I said, it was a wild ride. So anyway, I will close it here. Thank you guys for listening to some more Troubled Teen Diaries. I am going to get back into the habit of making other videos and stuff. I've just been very stressed and very overwhelmed with different health things, so I've been just filming whatever feels good. And I know there's things I need to get back to, like my Twilight podcast series. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys, it's been like a month and a half. Do you guys even care? I don't know. We will finish Twilight. I have everything notated to do it. I just haven't done it. And it's just like, that's very intensive for some reason. So I have series to come back. I'd like to do more service dog talks, things like that. Talk more about dog things. So I don't know. Yeah, I want to get back to all of my different series, but this is a new series. This is what I feel like talking about right now. This is what I feel mentally ready and willing and ready to kind of document and put out on film, and put out just my version of the story and leave it at that. You know what I mean? So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that other people who have maybe like been through things like this can find this therapeutic. And I hope people who are maybe looking at sending their kids to places like this reconsiders, because like I'm going to do like a whole video. It's like, I knew how to operate heavy industrial lawn and kitchen equipment before I could drive a car. So I hope it like reaches somebody in that way. You know what I mean? I will talk to you guys soon. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, I tried to intentionally keep the discussions about these locations very vague. I don't want any smoke and any, like, I'm not going to answer any questions or confirm or deny things about any facility that I may or may not have been to. And again, I am trying to talk about them as vague as possible and keep them mainly about my experience and the things that I saw, if that makes sense. And also, I'm not talking about things that were said at things like therapeutic settings, because I don't know why I would, but I also just like want to say that too. So yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys soon.